My phone shatters the darkness at 2:50 a.m., its ring piercing through the quiet of my Paris apartment. The screen glows with my sister in law's name, Rachel. Harper. Her voice breaks on a sob. Your father had a stroke. Come home quickly. The words hit like a bucket of ice water. I bolt upright, my silk sheets tangling around my legs. What hospital? St. Mary's, Rachel's breath hitches. Please hurry. My hands shake as I fumble with my laptop, booking the first flight I can find. 6,000 euros. Nearly everything in my savings, but what choice do I have? The Montmartre hotel project sits half-finished on my drafting table, its elegant lines a mockery of the chaos erupting around me. 6 months of work, my biggest commission yet, and now I'll have to abandon it. The taxi crawls through Paris traffic 40 minutes later while my mind races ahead. 8 hours trapped in a metal tube, wondering if I'll make it in time, wondering if he'll still be alive when I land. The last conversation I had with my father plays on repeat, his disapproval of my career choice, his insistence that I was wasting my potential outside the family business. My grandfather Raymond would have understood. He always said following your heart wasn't selfish if you did it with integrity. But he's been gone 3 years now, and without his gentle wisdom as a buffer, the family fractures have only deepened. The airport terminal blurs past as I run, dragging my hastily packed suitcase. I barely register checking in or boarding. My world narrows to the steady drone of engines and the tight knot in my stomach. Every minute feels like an hour. I spend the flight clutching my armrests, watching the sun crawl across the Atlantic. The woman next to me offers a sympathetic smile and a tissue. Apparently, I've been crying without realizing it. I manage a wooden thank you, but can't bring myself to explain. At the present, the taxi from JFK winds through familiar streets that somehow feel different. McGinty's Diner, where Dad used to take us for Sunday breakfast, is now a sleek coffee shop. The old movie theater has been converted to a pharmacy. Even my hometown feels like it's moved on about me. St. Mary's Hospital. I tell the driver, my voice hoarse from disuse. He nods, taking the turn onto Madison Avenue. An hour later, the emergency room entrance looms ahead, its red letters harsh in the morning light. I practically throw my fare at the driver and rush inside, wheeling my suitcase behind me. Gregory Peterson. I tell the intake nurse. He was admitted last night. Stroke. Her fingers tap across the keyboard. She frowns. I'm not seeing any record of a Gregory Peterson being admitted in the last 48 hours. That's impossible. My sister-in-law called. He's supposed to be here. More typing. Let me check our other systems. Sometimes transfers don't show up right away. 5 minutes of searching yields nothing. The cold certainty settling in my stomach has nothing to do with hospital air conditioning. I pull out my phone, hands steady now as I dial my brother's number. 1 ring, 2, 3. Blake Peterson. Where's Dad? A pause. He's at home. Rachel said he had a stroke, that he was at St. Mary's. Another pause, longer this time. There must have been some confusion. Why don't we come to the house? We can explain everything. The taxi ride to the family estate takes exactly 12 minutes. I count every second, watching familiar landmarks scroll past. The stone wall marking the property line, the wrought iron gates, the long driveway lined with maple trees my great-grandfather planted. I don't bother ringing the bell. The front door opens under my hand, unlocked as always. The foyer gleams with its usual pristine perfection. Not a speck of dust on the antique console table, fresh flowers in the Waterford vase, family photos arranged just so. Voices drift from the library. I follow them, my heels clicking against hardwood floors. The door stands ajar. And there sits my father in his favorite leather chair, very much alive and healthy, swirling bourbon in a crystal tumbler. Legal documents, mahogany dining table. Blake stands by the fireplace, his posture too casual to be natural. And in the corner, Arthur Whitman, our family lawyer, quietly organizes papers into neat stacks. Harper. Dad's voice is warm, pleasant, as if this were any normal morning. As if they hadn't just made me empty my savings account and fly across an ocean for a lie. Thank you for coming so quickly. We have some urgent family business to discuss. Blake clears his throat. About the hospital is a false alarm. Dad's fine. I look between them, my father's practiced smile, my brother's unconvincing concern, the lawyer's careful focus on his papers. The pieces click into place with terrible clarity. They needed me here, and they knew exactly how to make it happen. I set my suitcase by the door with deliberate care, buying time to decide, confront them now, or play along until I understand what they're really after. The choice crystallizes as I notice the trust paperwork among the scattered documents. My grandfather's elegant signature on the corner of one page, the word inheritance visible on another. So that's what this is about. I smooth my travel-wrinkled blazer and meet my father's eyes. Well then, I say, my voice steady, why don't you tell me what was so urgent it required faking a medical emergency? Behind me, the library door swings shut with a soft final click. I believe we can all agree this situation requires a delicate handling. My father swirls the bourbon in his glass, ice cubes clinking against crystal. The morning sun streaming through leaded windows catches the amber liquid, casting tiny prisms across the mahogany table. Legal documents spread before us like a paper minefield. My fingers curl around the arm of my grandfather's old leather chair, finding the familiar worn patch where his hand once rested. The scent of lemon polish and aged wood fills my lungs as I force each breath to remain steady, measured, professional. Just another business meeting. Family unity has always been our greatest strength. Dad's voice carries that practiced warmth he uses for particularly lucrative clients. Your grandfather built this company on the foundation of shared prosperity. Blake steps away from the fireplace, spreadsheets fanning out from his manicured hands. The quarterly projections show a concerning trend. His Harvard MBA comes through in every crisp syllable. Market volatility, combined with unexpected supply chain disruptions. Perhaps we should be direct. Arthur Whitman's leather briefcase snaps open. Our family lawyer extracts another stack of documents with surgical precision. The situation requires temporary fund reallocation to maintain operational stability. The magnitude hits me as I scan the numbers. $4.6 million. My voice sounds distant, hollow. That's what you need to avoid bankruptcy. Dad's fingers tighten around his glass. Your grandfather's trust comes due on your birthday next month. $7.4 million that could secure the family legacy. The room blurs slightly at the edges. I remember the day Grandfather Raymond explained his decision, the afternoon sun warming his study, his green eyes bright with purpose. The trust requires you to build your own path, little bird. Away from the family business, your father. He never understood there are different kinds of strength. Blake and Camille received their shares years ago. Dad's tone suggests reasonable disappointment. They chose to reinvest in the company. Chose. The word tastes bitter. I glance at Blake's Italian wool suit, the heavy gold watch gleaming on his wrist. He'd gotten his inheritance at 25, right after business school. The same year, the company mysteriously acquired 3 new lumber mills. Your grandfather would want you to save the family legacy. Dad leans forward, bourbon forgotten. He couldn't have anticipated this crisis. Blake slides another spreadsheet across the polished wood. I've prepared some projections showing optimal investment strategies. The return potential? Excuse me. My voice remains perfectly steady. I should freshen up after the flight. I rise with careful grace, heels silent against thick carpet. Dad's study door closes behind me with a soft click that echoes through my bones. My fingers trail along the hallway's oak wainscoting, gathering the courage to explore. The house feels different in daylight, emptier. Memories whisper from every corner. Summer afternoons spent reading in window seats, winter evenings watching snow fall in the garden. I slip into Dad's private office, the one even Blake rarely enters. File cabinets yield their secrets to the key I'd copied years ago. Financial records, property deeds, loan documents with interest rates that make my throat tighten. The family business bleeding money like a gutted animal. Movement in the garden catches my eye. Camille kneels among her roses, pruning shears flashing in morning light. My baby sister, the only one who never tried to shape me into something else. The French doors open silently. Dew soaks through my stockings as I cross the lawn. Harper. Camille's smile holds genuine warmth, but her eyes dart toward the house. She rises, brushing dirt from her gardening apron. I'm so sorry about everything. Are you safe? The question slips out before I can stop it. Her pruning shears snip a withered bloom. Financially? For now. Her voice drops to barely a whisper. Be careful. Blake's been moving money offshore. Shell companies, property holdings. I found some papers. I squeeze her shoulder once, memorizing the feel of worn cotton under my fingers. Time to decide, confront them now, or play the longer game. The trust paperwork surfaces in my mind. Grandfather's signature in the corner, his voice echoing across years. Patience, little bird. Sometimes the strongest position is the one they don't see you take. Back in the library, 3 pairs of eyes track my return. I smooth my blazer, channeling every negotiation I've ever handled in Paris. I appreciate the complexity of the situation. My tone suggests reasonable consideration. I'll need time to consider what's best for everyone. The tension bleeds from Dad's shoulders. Blake's smirk doesn't quite reach his eyes. Of course. Arthur Whitman gathers his papers with practiced efficiency. This is a significant decision. A few days to review everything thoroughly. I meet my father's gaze. That seems prudent. He raises his glass in agreement, perfect confidence restored. They don't see my fingers curled against my leg, nails biting into palm. Don't notice the way I catalog every document on the table, every file abandoned in their relief. They think they've won the opening move. They forget who taught me chess. Grandfather's voice whispers from the leather chair. The game isn't always what they think it is, little bird. No. Sometimes it's about discovering just how deep the betrayal goes. The next day, after talking to my grandpa's former assistant and arranging a meeting, I went to meet her. Mrs. Ainsley's arthritic fingers tremble as she unlocks the filing cabinet in her basement. The retired CPA shoots nervous glances toward her narrow windows, though we're below ground level. Your grandfather insisted I keep copies of everything. She pulls out a stack of leather-bound ledgers. Even after Blake called them redundant and had the originals destroyed. I steady my phone's camera, documenting each page she turns. The numbers tell their own story, systematic draining of company accounts, masked as business expansions. Blake's signature appears on document after document, each one bleeding a little more money into his personal ventures. Does anyone else know about these records? Mrs. Ainsley shakes her head. Raymond made me promise to keep them safe. Said someday they might matter. Her voice catches. He always worried about Blake's creative accounting. Back in my rental car, I scan through the photos. 6 days of gathering evidence, and the pattern is clear. But I need someone who understands the legal implications. Someone I can trust. The phone rings twice before she answers. Clara Warren. It's Harper Peterson. I pause, watching a neighbor walk his dog past Mrs. Ainsley's house. I need your help with Grandfather Raymond's trust. Silence stretches across the line, then, I was wondering when you'd call. Clara arrives 3 days later, her silver Mercedes parking behind the downtown diner where Reed Collins already waits. My college ex now works white-collar crime for the state. His badge stays hidden, but his eyes still hold that same sharp intelligence that first drew me to him 15 years ago. You've got quite a situation, he says, sliding into our corner booth. No hello, no small talk. Some things never change. Clara spreads the trust documents across the Formica table, careful to avoid the coffee rings. Raymond built in protections I've never seen before. Anti-coercion clauses. Specific provisions against family pressure. She taps one paragraph. He knew they might try something like this. The contract they want you to sign? Reed points to the photo on my phone. Hidden clauses. Blake's already using your inheritance as collateral. 3 new loans in the past month. My coffee grows cold while they outline criminal charges, statutes of limitations, potential sentences. The fluorescent lights flicker overhead, turning Clara's elegant silk blouse in sickly green. Outside, trucks rumble past on the highway. Drivers will never know they're witnessing the dismantling of the Peterson family legacy. If we move fast, Reed says, we can protect the evidence. But Harper, his hand stops short of touching mine. This means turning in your own father. I know, I respond, and I am ready. We plan everything and go home. Later at my hotel room, the bathroom mirror shows dark circles under my eyes. 6 days of secrets, 6 days of pretending everything's fine while I gather proof of my family's crimes. Water splashes my face but can't wash away the truth. I'm not just protecting my inheritance anymore. This is about Camille's future too. My hand stopped shaking as I dialed the number Reed gave me. Yes, I'd like to speak with the Financial Crimes Unit. My voice sounds strange in the tiled bathroom. Distant. Professional. I need to report evidence of extensive fraud. 2 hours later, I sit in a government office, surrounded by state investigators. They record my statement, copy my files, document the trail of evidence leading back through years of careful deception. I write every detail in clean architect's printing. Sign my name on official forms. Watch them timestamp and file each piece of proof that will destroy my family. My father's voice echoes from childhood. Family protects family, no matter what. But he never taught us what to do when family becomes the threat. The investigator slides her card across the desk. We'll need you to maintain your routine. Act normal. Can you do that? I think of the family brunch tomorrow. My father's bourbon-soaked smile. Blake's smug confidence. The contract they expect me to sign. Yes. I tuck the card into my wallet. I can do that. Back in my hotel room, I practice my expression in the mirror. Not too eager. Not too resistant. The perfect mask of reluctant compliance they'll expect to see. Years of navigating family dynamics finally serving their purpose. My phone buzzes. A text from Blake. Don't forget brunch tomorrow, 10 a.m. sharp. Wear something nice, we're celebrating. I set my alarm, lay out my clothes, check my presentation one final time. Tomorrow they'll think I'm surrendering my inheritance. They have no idea what's really coming. The ceiling fan spins lazy circles above my bed. Sleep won't come, but that's fine. I've spent 6 days playing the dutiful daughter while building the case that will bring down our family's house of lies. Now I just have to make it through one more meal. At home the next day, the Limoges china glints in the morning light, each place setting a perfect mirror of the next. Gregory always did have an eye for presentation. I watch from the doorway as he adjusts a dessert fork, aligning it precisely with the others. The dining room table stretches before him like a battlefield, mapped out in porcelain and crystal. The coffee service needs polishing. His voice carries that familiar note of command. And make sure the contracts are arranged by the head of the table. Blake should be here any minute. The housekeeper hurries to comply, her shoes clicking against the hardwood floors. I slip away before he notices me, retreating upstairs to finish dressing for this farce of a family brunch. My charcoal gray suit armor feels appropriate for the occasion. I secure the last pearl button on my silk blouse, remembering how Mother used to say a lady always dresses for the outcome she desires. If she were here today, I wonder whose side she'd take. The doorbell chimes. Through my bedroom window, I watch Blake stride up the front walk, leather briefcase swinging. He's whistling. Actually whistling, like a man who believes he's already won. I check my watch, 10:45 a.m., everything right on schedule. When I descend the main staircase 15 minutes later, the performance is in full swing. Blake arranges papers with practiced casualness while Camille fusses with flower arrangements, her eyes darting between family members like a nervous sparrow. Our family lawyer, Arthur Whitman, stands by the sideboard attempting small talk about the weather. Harper. Gregory raises his crystal mimosa glass. So glad you could join us for this special occasion. I smile, letting just enough warmth reach my eyes. I wouldn't miss it. The first course arrives, delicate crepes with fresh berries. I take small, measured bites as conversation flows around me. Blake expounds on property values in the Berkshires. Gregory pontificates about legacy planning. Camille pushes food around her plate, watching me. The expansion possibilities are remarkable, Blake says, spreading his hands. Once we consolidate the assets. How many properties have you acquired this quarter? I cut in, my tone casual. The market's been quite active. He pauses, fork halfway to his mouth. We can review the portfolio details after we handle the primary business. Of course, I sip my water, just curious about the scope of our family enterprise. Gregory clears his throat. Speaking of business, he nods to Arthur, who produces a thick envelope. Harper, we've prepared everything according to standard procedures. The transfer documents just need your signature. A toast first, Blake suggests, lifting his glass. To family unity, to preserving and growing the generational wealth our ancestors worked so hard to build. The crystal chimes as glasses meet. I let mine hover near my lips without drinking. Arthur slides the contract across the polished mahogany, aligned perfectly with my place setting. A Mont Blanc pen gleams beside it, Gregory's favorite, reserved for significant signatures. Take your time, he says. Review everything thoroughly. I open the envelope with steady hands, scanning pages I've already memorized. The hidden clauses blur between lines of standard legalese, The same traps Clara pointed out last week. I turn each page with deliberate care, feeling their eyes on me. Everything appears to be in order, I murmur. Though I'd like one final read through, if you don't mind, just to be certain. Of course. Gregory leans back, perfectly at ease. We want you completely comfortable with the arrangement. The grandfather clock in the hall strikes 11:30. As if on cue, the doorbell rings. Camille starts to rise. I'll get. No need. I fold my hands in my lap. That would be Clara Warren. Blake's chair scrapes against hardwood. Clara? What's she doing here? Heavy footsteps echo in the foyer, too many for just one person. Clara appears in the doorway, flanked by 2 state investigators in dark suits. Mr. Peterson, she nods to our father. I apologize for interrupting brunch, but these gentlemen have some questions about certain financial irregularities. Blake lunges for the contract, but one investigator is faster. Those documents are now evidence, sir. Please step away from the table. What's the meaning of this? Gregory's voice thunders. Harper, explain yourself. I meet his gaze across the ruins of our careful tableau. The meaning is quite simple, Dad. You faked a medical emergency to lure me home. You planned to coerce me into signing away my inheritance to cover up years of fraud. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate? We're your family, Blake snarls. Yes, and that's precisely why this hurts so much. The investigators move with quiet efficiency, gathering papers and electronics. No handcuffs, no dramatic arrests, just the steady dismantling of carefully constructed lies. I watch my father seem to age a decade, as he slumps in his chair, his facade finally cracking. Blake's rage radiates across the table in waves, but he stays silent as they catalog evidence. Smart man. He's probably already calculating plea bargain possibilities. Camille catches my hand as I stand to leave. I didn't know, she whispers. About any of it, I swear. I know. I squeeze her fingers gently. We'll talk soon. I walk out of that dining room without looking back, the click of my heels marking time with my heartbeat. The sun streams through leaded glass windows, catching the dust motes we stirred up. Tiny things hidden in plain sight, now impossible to ignore. Outside, birds sing in the maple trees my great-grandfather planted. The world spins on, indifferent to the implosion of the Peterson family legacy. I pause at my car, key in hand, remembering Sunday brunches from happier times. But you can't preserve a false peace by sacrificing truth. Sometimes love means choosing justice over loyalty. I start the engine and point the car toward town. I have a flight to Paris to book and a hotel design waiting to be finished. The future spreads before me like a blank page, ready for whatever I choose to build next. The next day, the oak conference table stretches between us like a battlefield. My father slumps in his leather chair, suit jacket unbuttoned, while Clara spreads documents across the polished surface. Outside the law office windows, spring rain drums against glass, nature's own testimony. The preliminary hearing is set for next Tuesday. Clara taps a blue folder. The judge granted our motion to freeze the company assets. I scan the financial printouts, each number a fresh wound. 4.6 million in misappropriated funds, 2.8 million in fraudulent loans, 1.2 million in phantom projects that never existed. My father's hands tremble as he reaches for his water glass. A week ago, those same hands gripped a bourbon tumbler with aristocratic confidence. Now his knuckles whiten against plain glass, wedding ring clicking softly. Blake's attorney called this morning. Clara's voice stays neutral, professional. They're exploring a plea arrangement. The evidence is substantial. Prison? The word scrapes my throat. Likely. The federal guidelines suggest 4 to 6 years, though cooperation could reduce that. My father's breath catches. I force myself to watch him absorb this, to witness the precise moment reality shatters his carefully constructed world. His shoulders cave inward, aging him 10 years in 10 seconds. I should have seen it. His whisper barely carries. All those expansion proposals, the irregular accounting. Raymond warned me about Blake's spending, but I thought. He presses his fingertips against closed eyes. A father wants to believe the best. Clara slides a leather journal across the table. The spine shows wear, corners softened by years of handling. My grandfather's distinctive handwriting fills the pages with architect's precision. Raymond left extensive notes about his concerns. Clara opens to a marked section. The trust structure, the career independence clause, the anti-coercion provisions. They weren't arbitrary rules. He was trying to protect you, Harper. All of you. I trace my grandfather's words. Blake shows concerning patterns with money. Gregory enables without seeing consequences. Must ensure Harper maintains independence from family influence. The journal entries span 15 years, tracking patterns I never noticed. Raymond watching, weighing, planning, building protections into his legacy like load-bearing walls in a foundation. My phone buzzes. Camille's text glows on the screen. Can we talk? Just us? Harper. My father's voice pulls me back. You don't have to do this, we can find another way, the family name. The family name belongs in handcuffs. The words snap out before I can soften them. You faked a medical emergency to manipulate me. You were going to steal my inheritance. The family name lost its meaning long before I exposed the truth. He flinches. Good. Let him feel something real for once. I've arranged counsel for both you and Blake. I gather the scattered papers into neat stacks. Quality attorneys who will protect your rights. That's more consideration than you showed me. You're still my daughter. And that's why I'm not pressing additional charges for the fake stroke scenario. I stand, smoothing my skirt. But it's also why I can't trust you anymore. I went out, leaving him speechless. The elevator ride to the lobby stretches eternal. My heels sink into plush carpet as I cross to the building's front entrance. Outside, the rain has stopped. Sunlight gleams off wet pavement. Nature's own fresh start. Camille waits at our favorite coffee shop, 2 blocks and a lifetime away from the law office. Her fingers worry the sleeve of her cardigan, a nervous habit since childhood. But her spine stays straight, shoulders squared. She's growing into her strength. Blake won't speak to me. She stirs her untouched latte. He says I chose the wrong side. There aren't sides, Cam. There's right and wrong. I know. She meets my eyes. That's why I'm grateful. For what you did. For showing me it's possible to love family without enabling them. My throat tightens. I reach across the table, squeeze her hand. We sit in comfortable silence, sisters finding solid ground in the aftermath of an earthquake. The next week blurs past in meetings and documents. Peterson Timbercraft dissolves not with a bang but with signatures and seals. Civil penalties. Asset liquidation. Administrative proceedings conducted in hushed tones and climate-controlled offices. 3 different competitors offer to buy the company name. Old money vultures circling fresh carrion. I decline each offer, ignoring their escalating bids. Some things aren't for sale. My laptop screen fills with the familiar faces of my Paris design team. The Montmartre project timeline stretches across shared documents, waiting for my return. The structural reinforcement plans arrived from the engineer. Sophie gestures to blueprints visible behind her. We can begin interior work next month if... I'll be there. The certainty in my voice surprises even me. Book the contractor. I'm flying back next week. But your family situation, Pierre's forehead creases with concern, is precisely why I need to return. I minimize the timeline, pull up my original design renderings. This is my work, my life. They don't get to derail that twice. Later that week, I return to the house. I stand in my grandfather's study, now mine by inheritance. The land preservation paperwork waits for my signature. 3,000 acres of forest protected from development. A legacy deeper than business empires. Raymond's photo watches from his desk. Those same green eyes I see in my mirror each morning. I touch the frame gently. You saw it all coming. My whisper fills the empty room. The manipulation, the fraud, the hard choices. You built me an escape route before I knew I'd need one. The setting sun paints the walls amber. Soon I'll board a plane, return to the life I've built. Let the lawyers handle the details. Let Blake face his consequences. Let father wrestle his conscience. My phone chimes with a text from Clara. Final papers filed, you're free to go. Free. The word settles like a key turning in a lock. I power down my laptop, slip it into my bag. The study door closes behind me with a soft click of brass on brass. Sometimes walking away isn't surrender. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do. I need a year to figure it out, though. A year later, The morning sun glints off the copper mansard roofs of Montmartre as I stand on the hotel's terrace, watching Paris wake. My fingers trace the smooth marble balustrade, the exact shade and finish I specified 11 months ago. Below, delivery trucks rumble over cobblestones, and the smell of fresh bread wafts up from the boulangerie on the corner. The contractor hands me the final inspection checklist. Every box ticked, every detail perfect. The restored 19th century staircase spirals through the building's heart like a ribbon of brass and mahogany. Art Deco sconces cast warm pools of light across silver-veined marble walls. In the lobby, the original mosaic floor gleams, each tiny tile restored by hand. My phone buzzes a photo from Camille. She's wearing a Stanford sweatshirt, flashing a peace sign from her dorm room. The text reads, "First finals week done. Call tonight?" I smile, remembering our video chat last week. She'd been curled in her desk chair, describing her architecture history professor's reaction when she mentioned having a sister who restored historic buildings in Paris. He totally geeked out. She'd laughed, asked if you'd guest lecture next semester. The weekly calls started as awkward attempts at reconnection. Now they flow easily: homework struggles, roommate drama, her tentative steps into college dating. Sometimes we talk about the harder things. Dad's quiet life in his rented condo, Blake's restricted financial dealings under court supervision. But mostly we focus on building something new between us, brick by careful brick. My therapist calls it post-traumatic growth. I call it learning to breathe again. A text from Clara Warren pops up. Trust paperwork officially filed on your 36th birthday next week. Dinner to celebrate? Below it, she's attached a photo of Grandfather Raymond's handwritten note, preserved in the trust documents. To my Harper May, you build beautiful things that last. The familiar slope of his handwriting makes my throat tight. I tuck my phone away and walk to the edge of the terrace. The Foundation's first project stands half-finished 3 streets over a forgotten Art Nouveau gem being restored to its former glory. Local artists will have studio space on the ground floor, while the upper floors will house a small architectural library. The brass plaque by the entrance will read, "The Raymond Peterson Foundation for Architectural Preservation." Mademoiselle Peterson? My assistant Marion appears with a stack of papers. The Preservation Committee needs final approval on the grant proposals. I follow her inside to my office, where the Paris afternoon light streams through tall windows. A framed photo sits on my desk, me surrounded by my design team at last month's celebration dinner. Real smiles, real connections, no hidden agendas or false unity. The grant proposals spread across my desk like a paper fan. 10 historic buildings waiting for renewal, each with its own story to tell. I pick up my pen, ready to begin. My phone lights up again. Another text from Camille. Serious question: want to show me around Paris this summer? Promise not to criticize your French accent. A year ago, I sat in this same office at 3 a.m, staring at a phone call that would unravel everything I thought I knew about family. The journey from that moment to this one hasn't been easy. When someone fakes a stroke to manipulate you, it's not just betrayal, it's a test of who you've become. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. And I got it. Looking out over the rooftops of Paris, I think about what Grandfather Raymond used to say. The strongest foundations are built on truth. He wasn't just talking about buildings. I text Camille back. Yes, time to show you my Paris. But first, you have to help me plan the Foundation's next restoration project. There's this amazing old theater in our hometown. The ceramic mug slips from my fingers before I can stop it. Coffee splashes across my kitchen table, soaking the corner of yesterday's mail, but I barely notice. My eyes remain fixed on the laptop screen, refusing to believe what I'm seeing. No, I whisper. No, no, no. Where $31,042 should be displayed in my savings account, a single stark figure stares back at me. $0. My hands tremble as I refresh the page. Nothing changes. The balance remains at 0, and a new transaction appears in the history. Withdrawal counter minus $31,042 with yesterday's timestamp. This has to be a mistake, I mutter, grabbing my phone. The bank's hold music plays for 17 excruciating minutes before a customer service representative answers. I clutch the phone so tightly my knuckles turn white. I'm looking at your account now, Miss Reynolds, the bank officer says after I explain. Then comes that uncomfortable pause, the kind that signals bad news. The withdrawal was processed yesterday at 2:14 p.m. at our Maple Street branch. Another pause. The withdrawal slip was signed by Patricia Reynolds. My mother. That's impossible, I say. But even as the words leave my mouth, a sick certainty settles in my stomach. She wouldn't. I'm afraid she did, Miss Reynolds. As a co-signer on the account, she has full withdrawal privileges. The room tilts slightly. But that's my college fund, my grandparents' gift, my savings from 3 years of weekend shifts at the bookstore. I understand your concern, the officer says, her voice professionally sympathetic. However, legally, I hang up. 15 minutes later, I'm driving across town, my hands gripping the steering wheel with unnecessary force. The familiar route to my mother's house now feels like a journey into enemy territory. The colonial house, with its perfectly trimmed hedges and hanging flower baskets, comes into view. Once it meant safety. Now it looms like a fortress built against me. I park haphazardly at the curb and stride up the brick walkway. When my mother opens the door, her expression shifts from surprise to something harder, more defensive. Madeline, she says coolly, this is unexpected. I push past her into the foyer. Where is it? Where's what? My money, I say, my voice shaking despite my efforts to control it. The $31,000 you took from my account yesterday. She sighs, waving her hand dismissively as she closes the door. Let's discuss this in the kitchen. Gary's home. Of course he is. My stepfather of 2 years stands at the kitchen counter, arms crossed over his chest, watching me with that smug half-smile that makes my skin crawl. You weren't being a team player with the new family, my mother says, leaning against the granite island. Consider it a lesson in gratitude. The casual cruelty of her words steals my breath. Gratitude? For what? Stealing my future. A floorboard creaks overhead, and I look up to see Brooke, my stepsister, standing at the top of the stairs, 18, pretty, with a smirk that matches her father's. Brooke's going to need that money for her college experience, my mother explains, as if discussing borrowing a sweater. Cornell is expensive, and she deserves the best start in life. Flash memories hit me in rapid succession. Graduation day 2 years ago. Grandpa presenting me with a check for $28,000, the product of years of their saving. Mom's tight smile as cameras flashed, the part-time job that allowed me to add $3,000 more. Mom growing increasingly distant after marrying Gary, subtle comments about my selfishness for wanting to attend college out of state instead of staying home to bond with Brooke. That money was my future. My voice breaks, betraying the emotion I'm trying desperately to contain. My mother's eyes harden. Maybe you should have thought about that before putting yourself first. From upstairs comes the sound of Brooke's laughter, light and amused at my distress. In that moment, something shifts inside me. This house, with its familiar smells and sounds, is no longer home. These people are no longer family in any way that matters. I'm leaving, I say quietly. Today. Don't be dramatic, Madeline. My mother sighs, examining her manicure. You're overacting. Where would you even go? I don't answer. Instead, I climb the stairs to my bedroom, what's left of it since Brooke has gradually claimed half the space for her belongings. I pull out my duffel bag and begin packing essentials. Behind me, my mother hovers in the doorway. This tantrum is unnecessary, she says. It's just money. Family is what matters. I place the framed family photo taken before she met Gary face down on the dresser. A text chimes on my phone. Grandpa, I'm outside when you're ready. He knew. Somehow, he anticipated this moment. 10 minutes later, I walk out the front door, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. You'll be back when you realize family is all you have, my mother calls after me. I don't look back. The kitchen table at my grandparents' house has become my war room. Papers spread across the worn oak surface like battlefield maps. Bank statements, Credit reports, collection notices. Each document a new wound. Look at the pattern, Grandpa says, tapping a weathered finger on the bank statements. His face holds none of the warmth I'm accustomed to. Only grim determination. October, November, December. Small withdrawals. Testing the waters before taking it all. My stomach twists as I trace the evidence. $50 here, $200 there. The slow bleeding of my account for months before the final withdrawal. And these? I ask, voice barely steady as I point to 3 credit card statements bearing my name. Cards I never applied for. Never activated, never used. Opened last year while you were still legally a dependent. Grandpa removes his reading glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. Maxed out within 2 months. The familiar scent of my grandmother's apple bread fills the kitchen, but nausea overrides any appetite. I push away from the table and pace the small kitchen, the linoleum cool beneath my bare feet. So it wasn't just impulse, not just the college money. The realization solidifies like concrete in my chest. She planned this, for months. My phone buzzes on the table. Another text message. I don't need to check to know who it's from. Mother has been carpet bombing the family with her version of events. Grandpa picks up the phone, his face hardening as he reads. Madeline abandoned us after all we've done for her. He sets the phone down with deliberate care, as if touching something contaminated. She sent similar messages to everyone in the family. Abandonment. The word tastes bitter. She stole my future and claims I abandoned her. The doorbell rings. Grandma's voice floats from the entryway, followed by another familiar voice that makes me freeze. Aunt Helen steps into the kitchen, her presence a shock. Mother's estranged sister, the family black sheep I've seen perhaps 5 times in my life. Her eyes so similar to my mother's, yet utterly different lock with mine. Your mother did the same thing to me 20 years ago, she says without preamble. No hello, no how are you. Just truth, served cold. I sink back into my chair. What? My college fund. Smaller than yours, 12,000. She convinced our parents I was using drugs and needed an intervention. By the time they discovered the truth, the money was gone. Helen sets her purse on the counter with a thud. Gary isn't the first husband she's used as an accomplice either. The pieces shift and reform in my mind. The whispered arguments between my grandparents that stopped when I entered rooms. The strained holidays. The careful way they never criticized my mother directly. Why didn't anyone tell me? Grandma enters with coffee mugs on a tray, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. We thought we could protect you by keeping the peace. We were wrong. The tuition deadline looms like an approaching storm. Even with my grandparents' offer of room and board, the numbers don't add up. My prime bookstore job barely covers textbooks. She tried to access your financial aid forms? Grandpa says, sliding another paper toward me. The financial aid office called yesterday. Someone claiming to be you requested a change of address for all correspondence. My throat tightens. How did you? Miss Abernathy in financial aid recognized something wasn't right. She's the one who suggested I check your credit report. My phone buzzes again. A social media notification. Brooke has posted photos of my mother in tears. The caption reads, "Some children forget everything their parents sacrificed for them." The comments section overflows with sympathy for her, condemnation for me. Sleep has become a luxury I can't afford. Nights spent staring at the ceiling of my childhood bedroom in my grandparents' house, calculating and recalculating impossible math. Days spent between classes and work, jumping at every phone notification, certain it's another attack. Madeline Reynolds? The voice belongs to a woman I've never met. She stands in the doorway of the financial aid office, her badge identifying her as Diane Abernathy, financial aid director. Yes, that's me. Come in. She closes the door behind us, voice lowered. I've reviewed your application again. My heart sinks. Another rejection. I've seen this before, she says, sliding a folder across her desk. We can make this work. The folder contains a scholarship application already filled out with my information. Half tuition. Not everything, but enough to make the impossible merely difficult. Why are you helping me? The question slips out before I can stop it. Miss Abernathy's smile holds no pity, only recognition. Let's just say I've been where you are. Different circumstances, same pattern. That night, I sleep without nightmares for the first time since walking out of my mother's house. The restraining order prohibiting access to my financial information sits on my nightstand like a shield. The next morning brings Aunt Helen again, this time with a small leather book. Your mother keeps a diary, she says, placing a hand on the book. Not this one, this is just a planner. But she has always kept detailed records of her projects. Projects? People she plans to use. She's been planning this since before the wedding, Madeline. You weren't the first, and Brooke won't be the last. Grandpa's hand rests heavy on my shoulder. We enabled her behavior for years, he admits, voice rough with emotion. Trying to keep the peace, making excuses, cleaning up messes. I look at the scattered papers on the table, evidence of a betrayal so fundamental it rewrites my entire childhood. How do I ever trust anyone again? You start by trusting yourself, Aunt Helen says. The voice inside that recognized something was wrong long before you had proof. That's the voice they try to silence first. Through the kitchen window, I see my grandmother in her garden, pruning roses with careful precision, cutting away the dead growth so the healthy stems can flourish. What now? I ask. Now, Grandpa says, picking up the restraining order. We make sure she can never do this to you again, and then we figure out how to get you through college without her. Aunt Helen's smile holds no warmth, only determination. And maybe, if we're very thorough, we make sure Patricia understands exactly what she's lost by treating her daughter like an ATM. For the first time since my coffee cup shattered on my kitchen floor, I feel something other than fear and betrayal, something that feels dangerously like hope. The text message lands like a grenade on my otherwise ordinary Tuesday morning. Brooke needs $3,200 for her college apartment. Can you help? 6 years, 2 months, and 14 days of silence from my mother, and this is what finally prompts her to reach out. Not an apology, not a question about my life. Just another demand for money, as if $31,000 wasn't enough. I set my phone down on my desk, noting how my hand remains steady. The familiar rush of adrenaline that once accompanied any contact from her has dulled to a minor irritation, like a paper cut that barely stings. Through my office window, the spring sunshine bathes the city in gold. My degree hangs on the wall beside my financial analyst certification. Both hard-won, paid for with double shifts, scholarships, and a stubbornness that still surprises me. My phone buzzes again. Uncle Robert this time. Your mother is worried sick about you. Time to let bygones be bygones. Then Aunt Patricia. Family helps family. You've done well for yourself now. Then Cousin Melissa, who I haven't spoken to since high school graduation. Must be nice having so much money you can ignore your family. The flying monkeys have been deployed. I silence my phone and finish reviewing the Henderson portfolio before lunch. 6 years ago, this barrage would have sent me spiraling. Now, I simply note the pattern and continue with my day. The voicemail waits until my lunch break. Madeline. Gary's voice fills my car as I unwrap my sandwich. Your mother has been more than patient with your attitude. This continued silence is childish and disrespectful. Brooke needs your help. And family obligations don't disappear just because you've decided to hold a grudge. I delete the message before he finishes. On my phone screen, a notification shows that I've been tagged in a Facebook post. My mother's status update reads, "Some people forget where they came from once they taste a little success. Sad how money changes people." 22 reactions. 14 sympathetic comments. The old Madeline would have immediately typed a furious defense. The new Madeline takes another bite of her sandwich and checks her investment portfolio instead. My apartment welcomes me home that evening, small but entirely mine. The rent is reasonable, my savings account healthy despite starting from absolute zero. The framed photo of my grandparents sits on my bookshelf next to the carefully organized financial records they helped me establish after everything happened. I brew a cup of tea and open my laptop. The folder labeled Documentation contains 6 years of meticulous record keeping, screenshots of her social media attacks, recordings of voicemails, transcripts of every interaction. Grandpa taught me well. Paper trails outlast emotional appeals, he always says. When my phone rings at 9:13 p.m., I answer on the third ring. Hello, Mother. Maddie, darling. Her voice drips with honey, nothing like the venom in her Facebook posts. It's so good to hear your voice. Missed you terribly. Have you? Of course we have. You're my daughter. The subtle emphasis on the possessive. I know we've had our differences, but that's water under the bridge now. Is it? Families disagree sometimes. That's normal. But at the end of the day, we're still family. I recognize each tactic as she deploys it. The gaslighting, differences instead of theft. The normalization. All families have conflict. The appeal to blood ties when convenient. When will you be returning my $31,000? My voice remains calm, almost pleasant. A beat of silence. Maddie, that's ancient history. We need to focus on moving forward. Brooke really needs your help with this apartment situation. When will you be returning my $31,000? I repeat. You're being ridiculous. The honey vanishes from her voice. That money went to family expenses. You benefited too. When will you be returning my money? Stop being so cold. This isn't the daughter I raised. I almost laugh. No, it isn't. The mask drops completely. You've always been selfish. Your father would be ashamed. I end the call and block her number, a boundary 6 years in the making. My grandfather calls the next morning. Your grandmother and I received quite the earful from your mother last night. Are you okay? Takes more than Patricia's tantrums to rattle us. We've been fielding these calls for years. I'm sorry. Don't be. Standing up to bullies never gets easier, but it gets more satisfying. My phone chimes with an email notification. Aunt Helen has publicly responded to my mother's latest social media attack. Interesting how you never mentioned the $31,000 you took from Madeline's account. Messages from college friends follow. We've got your back. Need anything? Just say the word. Even my boss stops by my desk. Family stuff can be rough. Take a mental health day if you need it. The support surrounds me like armor as the week progresses and the pressure for my mother intensifies. Each flying monkey receives the same response. My mother stole $31,000 from me. When she returns it, we can discuss family obligations. The shocked silence that follows each time is deeply satisfying. Saturday afternoon finds me at my grandparents' house, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee at their kitchen table. I keep waiting to stop feeling hurt. I admit to my grandfather, tears finally breaking through. But I don't think that day will come. He covers my hand with his weathered one. You don't stop feeling it. You just stop letting it control you. His words settle something inside me. I've been waiting for an apology that will never come, closure that only exists in movies. The real freedom lies in acceptance. Monday morning, I call my lawyer. What's the statute of limitations on financial fraud in our state? 7 years, she answers. Are you finally ready to discuss legal options? Just preparing for every possibility. I set up new email filters that evening. All communication from family members routes to a special folder, preserved as evidence but no longer able to disrupt my peace. My therapist has helped me prepare responses for every possible manipulation tactic. The certified letter arrives 3 weeks later. The return address shows my old bank. Inside, a business card is paper-clipped to a sealed envelope. The bank officer's handwritten note reads, I found something you should see about your account closure. My hand trembles as I begin to open it. I slide the letter into the envelope, my handwriting precise and controlled on the address label. No personal note. No, dear Mom. Just cold professional language citing exact figures. $31,000.42 withdrawn on the 17th of June, 2017, plus accrued interest at standard savings rate over 6 years. $4,526.88. Total. $35,527.3. The certified mail receipt costs $3.75. Money well spent for proof they can't deny receiving it. My counter offer sits at the bottom of the page, a single sentence. I will consider helping Brooke when my $31,000 plus 6 years of interest is returned in full. The postal worker stamps the receipt. Someone's in trouble, she jokes. I don't smile. Someone certainly is. 3 days later, Susan from reception calls my desk extension. Madeline, there's someone here demanding to see you. Her voice drops to a whisper. She says she's your mother. My stomach clenches, but I've prepared for this. I stand, straighten my blouse, and walk calmly to the lobby. Mom paces like a caged animal, her designer purse clutched against her chest. When she spots me, her voice rises to a theatrical pitch. There you are. How could you send such a heartless letter? Your sister needs you. Heads turn. Exactly what she wants. This isn't the place for this discussion, I say quietly. When is the place? You won't answer our calls. Brooke is devastated. My daughter is abandoning her sister when she needs her most. Mr. Thornhill from accounting pauses by the water cooler, watching with undisguised interest. 2 of my team members hover near the elevator, concern etched on their faces. Your daughter stole $31,000 from me, I say, my voice steady. That's the only abandonment that occurred here. Mom's face flushes crimson. That money was family money. We needed it for Brooke's education, which you took without asking, without permission. I was on the account. It was perfectly legal. Legal isn't the same as right. I check my watch. I have a meeting in 5 minutes. Please leave before security is called. Mom's voice cracks. After everything I've done for you. When I don't respond, she turns to the small audience that's gathered. My daughter won't help her sister with a tiny amount for her apartment, after all the sacrifices I made raising her alone. Susan, who has heard the whole story over lunch last month, steps forward. Ma'am, I need to ask you to leave the premises. Mom sputters, clutching her purse tighter. This is how you treat family, Madeline? This is who you've become? I don't flinch. This is who you taught me to be. As security approaches, she storms out, leaving stunned silence in her wake. Mr. Thornhill meets my eyes. That took guts, Reynolds. Even my boss, watching from the hallway, gives me a respectful nod. The texts start that evening. Mom, you've made your point. Let's discuss this like adults. Gary, your behavior today was completely unprofessional. We're trying to reach a reasonable solution. I forward each message to my lawyer without responding. Grandfather calls after dinner. They contacted us today. My hand tightens around the phone. What did they want? Gary tried the reasonable businessman act. When that didn't work, he suggested we might want to influence you before things get complicated. My throat tightens. I'm sorry they're dragging you into this. Don't you worry about us. Helen filed the cease and desist letter this afternoon. Any further contact and we proceed with harassment charges. Later that night, I see Brooke's tearful video on social media. Family means standing together through hard times. She sniffles into the camera. I never thought I'd be abandoned by my own sister when I needed her most. The comment section fills with sympathetic responses until Aunt Helen drops her bomb. Tell the truth about the $31,000 your parents stole from Madeline's college fund to pay for your apartment. Brooke, then we can talk about family obligations. The whispers start among family friends. Mom's church group suddenly has scheduling conflicts when she tries to organize the annual fundraiser. 2 of Gary's business associates ask uncomfortable questions about, That situation with your stepdaughter's money. Brooke's direct message arrives a week later. I didn't know about the money, I swear. Then Mom's text. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding about the funds. Gary's follows shortly after. We should discuss this face-to-face like adults, no need for lawyers. I delete them all. The letter arrives on a Tuesday. Heavy cream paper, expensive letterhead. Davidson, Price and Associates, attorneys at law. I laugh out loud as I read their claim of familial financial obligation and moral responsibility to support immediate family members in need. Grandfather reviews it that evening, his face grim. They're actually trying to intimidate you legally. This is a new low. I pull out the folder the bank officer gave me last month. Inside, copies of the withdrawal slips. Mom's signature next to reason for withdrawal, tuition payment. The security camera still showing Mom and Gary at the counter, timestamp matching the transaction. Let them try, I say, feeling strangely calm. I'm not the one who should be afraid of what a judge might say. Grandfather squeezes my shoulder. You've become quite the strategist, Maddie. For the first time in years, I feel not just angry, but powerful. I learned from the best, I tell him, just not in the way Mom intended. The legal letter sits on my kitchen counter like a snake coiled to strike. Familial financial obligation, printed in bold at the top, as if family can be reduced to a financial transaction. I trace my finger over the embossed letterhead of Whitman and Associates, wondering how much my mother paid for this elaborate intimidation. My phone buzzes. Aunt Cheryl, my mother's youngest sister. Again. Madeline, she says when I answer, her voice honey, sweet with insincerity. I was hoping we could talk. An hour later, she sits across from me at my small kitchen table, stirring sugar into tea she hasn't tasted. Your mother is devastated by this rift, Aunt Cheryl says, placing her hand over mine. I resist the urge to pull away. Can't you just help Brooke this once, for family peace? I sip my tea, buying time. The same family peace that vanished when my mother took $31,000 from me? Aunt Cheryl's smile tightens. You've done so well for yourself, despite everything. Her eyes dart around my modest apartment. Surely you understand that success comes with certain obligations to those who raised you. Obligations. I repeat, tasting the bitterness of the word. Like honesty, respect, protection. She leaves 20 minutes later. Mission unaccomplished. As I close the door behind her, my phone rings with my boss's number. Madeline, I received a strange call today, he says without preamble. Someone suggesting we should review your financial history due to instability concerns. Care to explain? My stomach knots. Gary. The calls keep coming throughout the week. Distant cousins taking sides on Facebook. An uncle questioning my grandparents about what really happened. The whispers spreading through our extended family like poison. Then Brooke appears at my door on Saturday morning, eyes red-rimmed, clutching her phone. I can't handle a roommate, she blurts before I can speak. The apartment Dad and Patricia found costs more than my housing allowance. They said you owed us. She looks down. Me. I step back, allowing her inside. She hovers near the door like she might bolt. They told you I owed you $31,000? I ask, keeping my voice neutral. Not exactly. Brooke wipes her eyes. They said family helps family, and you weren't being fair after everything they did for you. I almost laugh. What exactly did they do for me, Brooke? Her silence answers everything. The conference room at Wellington Legal gleams with polished mahogany and leather chairs. My lawyer, Miss Chen, arranges her notepad with precision, her face betraying nothing. I smooth my skirt, checking my watch. They arrive 5 minutes late, a calculated power move. My mother sweeps in first, Chanel suit and pearls, her armor for battle. Gary follows, his hand possessively at her back. Brooke skulks behind them, eyes darting around the room before settling on the floor. Their lawyer, a silver-haired man with monogrammed cufflinks, nods curtly as introductions are made. I understand we're here to discuss some family matters, he begins, his voice rich with condescension. Something about an apartment for the younger daughter? Before we discuss Brooke's apartment needs, I say, placing a large manila envelope on the polished table, let's address the existing debt. My mother's smile freezes. Debt? There's no debt between us, Madeline. Just a daughter who abandoned her family. Miss Chen opens the envelope, removing documents with deliberate care. The first item, she says, sliding a paper toward their lawyer, is the bank record showing withdrawal of $31,000.42 on the 17th of April, 2019, at 2:14 p.m. from Madeline Reynolds' savings account. Their lawyer adjusts his glasses, scanning the document. Next, Miss Chen continues, placing a grainy image on the table. Security footage from First National's Maple Street branch, showing Patricia Reynolds and Gary Whitfield at the counter at exactly 2:14 p.m. The color drains from my mother's face. Gary straightens in his chair. That's perfectly legal, he interrupts. Patricia was a co-signer on that account. Indeed, Miss Chen agrees pleasantly. However, the withdrawal slip this document here states the purpose as tuition payment for Madeline Reynolds at Brookfield University. She taps the paper. Madeline never received those funds. This is absurd, my mother hisses. You can't possibly. We also have this affidavit, Miss Chen continues, unruffled, from Bank Officer Thomas Jennings, noting his concerns about the transaction. Particularly interesting is his documentation of Mrs. Whitfield's refusal to provide contact information for Madeline to confirm the withdrawal purpose. The family lawyer leans toward Gary, whispering urgently. Brooke stares at my mother, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. The statute of limitations for financial fraud in this state, Miss Chen notes, is 7 years. We're approaching year 6. Gary attempts to speak, but only manages to stutter. My mother's perfectly manicured nails dig into the leather portfolio she clutches. I lean forward, meeting my mother's eyes directly. Return my money with interest $38,622.17 to be precise. We proceed legally. You wouldn't dare, she whispers. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family, I reply, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Patricia, their lawyer interjects softly, I advise you to consider this offer very carefully. Tears well in my mother's eyes. The performance I've seen countless times. I remain silent. You have 48 hours to decide, I say, standing. Miss Chen gathers the documents as I walk out, back straight, steps measured. Through the glass wall, I glimpse Gary gesturing wildly at their lawyer. My mother sits motionless, staring at nothing. In the parking lot, their raised voices carry across the asphalt. I don't turn to watch. My phone buzzes with a text from Brooke as I reach my car. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. 26 hours later, Miss Chen calls. Their lawyer contacted me. They've agreed to your terms. The courier arrives the next morning with a certified check and a handwritten note on my mother's monogram stationery. Consider this matter closed. I trace my finger over her elegant handwriting, fold the note precisely, and drop it into my shredder. Sunlight streams through my apartment windows, casting golden squares across the hardwood floor. 1 year after the storm, and I wake without that familiar knot in my stomach. I sip coffee from my new mug, solid ceramic, impossible to break, and study the framed college diploma hanging on my wall. Next to it, a framed bank statement shows a balance of $37,246.18. My recovered money plus interest, justice in numerical form. My phone doesn't make me flinch anymore when it chimes. The sound once triggered a cascade of dread, wondering what fresh manipulation awaited. Now it's just a phone. When the text arrives, your cousin Jessica's wedding is next month. Family expects you there. I feel nothing. No spike of anxiety, no surge of anger. I simply set the phone down and continue spreading peanut butter on my toast. An hour later, I still haven't replied. I don't need to. The boundary stands without explanation or defense. "How's the presentation coming?" Dr. Winters asks during our weekly session. We don't talk about Mom anymore, or Gary, or the theft. Instead, we discuss my promotion opportunities, my weekend plans with friends, the container garden flourishing on my balcony. "I'm ready," I tell her. 6 people from different financial backgrounds. I'm focusing on practical steps rather than horror stories. She nods, looking forward, not back. That evening, Grandpa raises his glass at Ferraro's Italian restaurant. "To the newest senior analyst at Westbrook Partners." Grandma beams beside him. Aunt Helen clinks her glass against mine, her eyes crinkling with genuine pride. My college roommate Dana whoops loudly enough to turn heads. My friend Miguel, who started in the mailroom the same day I started as a junior analyst, grins and adds, "They didn't stand a chance against Hurricane Madeline." No drama. No ulterior motives. Just celebration. The next day at the community center, I arrange handouts for my financial literacy workshop. A young woman lingers after the others file in, clutching her purse like someone might snatch it. "My stepfather emptied my account last month," she whispers. $3,000. Everyone says I should just forgive him to keep the peace. I recognize the shame in her downcast eyes, the slight hunch of her shoulders. "The most valuable thing I recovered wasn't the money," I tell her quietly. "It was learning who I am without their approval." Hope flickers across her face, that particular expression of someone realizing they aren't alone. At home, I finally remove the old family photo from my drawer. Mom, Dad, and 8-year-old me at Lake Michigan, before cancer took him, before Gary, before everything fractured. I don't toss it, that would require anger I no longer harbor. I simply place it in a memory box alongside other artifacts from a different life. In its place on my dresser stands a new frame. Grandma and Grandpa flanking me at graduation. Aunt Helen with her arms slung over my shoulder at Thanksgiving. Dana and Miguel posing dramatically in front of my new apartment building. Some gardens grow better after pruning, Grandma told me last month while we planted tomatoes on my balcony. Her weathered hands patted the soil with certainty. The realtor's business card sits on my counter beside house listings. The recovered money plus my savings equals a down payment. A home of my own, built on my terms. When my phone rings with an unknown number, I almost let it go to voicemail. Work habit makes me answer. "Madeline?" The voice is hesitant, familiar. "Brooke." My pulse remains steady. "Can I?" A pause. "Can I ask your advice?" The setting sun paints my walls orange as I consider my response. Not my responsibility, but perhaps my choice. "I can listen," I say finally, watching the light change. "But I need honesty in return." I hear her exhale. The conversation begins on my terms as the day fades into evening.